Picture a lion, 600 pounds of muscle, bone, and instinct, jaws that can crush through femurs, claws designed specifically to hold struggling prey in place. It has been the apex predator of the African savanna for millions of years. Every animal on that landscape has spent those millions of years learning at a genetic level exactly how afraid to be of it. Now picture a group of early humans walking toward that lion. No claws, no fangs, no armor, flat teeth, slow, weak, barely any fur. By every physical measure, not a threat. And yet, a 2023 study published in Current Biology by conservation biologist Liana Zanet and her colleagues played recordings of various predators to animals at waterholes in South Africa's Greater Kruger National Park, one of the world's largest remaining lion populations. They played lion calls, they played hunting sounds, and they played recordings of ordinary human voices. The results were not close. Animals were twice as likely to flee and abandoned the waterhole 40% faster in response to hearing humans than in response to hearing lions. Nearly 95% of species tested, elephants, rhinos, giraffes, leopards, hyenas, zebras, responded more fearfully to the sound of a human voice than to any other predator on the landscape. The most physically unimpressive primate on the savanna was also the most terrifying thing on it. And that fear wasn't learned yesterday. It was built over hundreds of thousands of years of encounters that animals and their ancestors did not survive. The obvious question is how? How did a creature with no natural weapons become the thing that every other creature on Earth learned to fear above all else? The answer isn't one thing. It's a combination of biological advantages so specific, so unusual, and so relentless that no animal that encountered early humans had any evolutionary framework for dealing with them. Start with the body. Humans are, by most measures, physically mediocre. But there is one thing the human body does better than almost any other animal on Earth. It cools itself, while running, at the same time. Every other land mammal of significant size has physiological limits that force it to stop. A cheetah can hit 70 miles per hour, but it can only sustain that speed for a few hundred meters before muscle fatigue and lactic acid buildup force it to stop. After a hunt, it must rest, sometimes for 30 minutes or more, before it can do anything useful again. A wildebeest can outrun a human in a straight sprint without effort. But sprinting builds up heat and exhaustion that eventually forces every animal to stop and recover. Humans sweat. Between 2 and 4 million sweat glands cover the human body, more than any other mammal on Earth. Combined with the near total loss of body hair that occurred somewhere in our evolutionary history, this system allows humans to dissipate heat with extraordinary efficiency while in continuous motion. A human running in the midday African heat is not just moving, it is actively cooling itself in real time, something its prey cannot do. This is the basis of persistence hunting, a method of predation documented in the Sand People of the Kalahari and described in detail by researcher Louis Liebenberg in a 2006 paper in the journal Medical Hypotheses. The strategy is almost insultingly simple. You find an animal, you chase it. Not fast, not even close to the animal's top speed. You simply don't stop. You follow it at a steady jog, tracking its footprints and disturbing it every time it tries to rest through the hottest part of the day for hours, sometimes covering distances of 20 to 30 kilometers. The animal, unable to cool itself adequately while fleeing, eventually goes into hyperthermia. Its legs stop working properly. It stumbles, and then you walk up and kill it. Think about what this looks like from the animal's perspective. It ran. It was faster. It escaped. It stopped to rest, and the humans were still coming. It ran again. The humans were still coming. It ran until it physically could not run anymore, and the humans were still coming. There is no evolutionary precedent for this. No animal in the history of life on Earth had encountered a predator that simply would not stop. But persistence hunting was only one piece of what made ancient humans terrifying. The other piece was something far more difficult for any prey animal to adapt to. Weapons with distance. The Schöningen spears discovered in Germany are the oldest complete hunting weapons ever found. Wooden throwing spears between 6 and 8 feet long, carefully shaped and balanced like modern javelins, with the weight centered toward the front for maximum accuracy. They were found alongside the butchered remains of more than 20 horses. Before these spears, an animal only needed to fear what could reach it. After them, nothing was safe at any distance. Atlatls, Spear-throwing devices that extended the arm's effective length and dramatically increased projectile velocity appear in the archaeological record around 25,000 to 30,000 years ago. Bows and arrows follow. With each development, the killing range extended. A lion hunts at close range. A wolf pack surrounds its prey. A human with a projectile weapon kills from 50, 100, 200 meters away, from concealment, without warning, without any signal that something dangerous was nearby. For millions of years, prey animals had evolved to detect predators through sound, scent, and movement. They had developed extraordinary sensitivity to the specific cues that indicated danger was close. None of that worked against something that killed from a distance, downwind, in silence. The landscape of fear built over millions of years of predator-prey coevolution became largely useless. The evidence of what happened when humans arrived in new territories is written across the fossil record on every continent. Everywhere humans expanded, the large animals disappeared. In Australia, where megafauna including giant kangaroos, marsupial lions, and a lizard the size of a car had survived 20 ice age cycles over millions of years, they collapsed within a relatively short period of human arrival. In North America, mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, and short-faced bears, animals that had persisted for millions of years through repeated climate shifts, disappeared in a geological instant that coincides almost precisely with the spread of the Clovis people across the continent. In New Zealand, the moa, a species standing 12 feet tall and weighing half a ton, were extinct within a few centuries of the first Polynesian settlers arriving. The pattern is so consistent that archaeologist Todd Surivel, studying megafaunal extinctions on a global scale, described it this way: humans move to a new place, and megafauna suffer extinction. The debate in the scientific literature is about the relative contribution of hunting versus climate change in each specific case. But the correlation between human arrival and megafaunal collapse holds up everywhere, on every continent, across every time period studied. And the animals that survived longest were the ones in Africa, which is exactly where you would expect to find them. Because African megafauna, elephants, rhinos, lions, hippos, had been evolving alongside humans for hundreds of thousands of years. They had time to develop the appropriate level of fear. They had time to learn, generation by generation, to avoid the upright primate with the projectiles and the relentless endurance. The animals in Australia and the Americas had no such history. They had never seen a human before. They didn't run. And they didn't survive. This is what the researchers studying the landscape of fear call naive prey. Animals that had not evolved alongside humans and therefore had no hardwired response to their presence. An elephant in Africa today will move away from the sound of a human voice because its ancestors that didn't move away from humans were killed, and that behavior was selected for over hundreds of thousands of years. A mammoth in North America 13,000 years ago had no such history. It probably looked at the approaching bipeds with curiosity. It was the last thing it ever looked at. The fear that animals feel toward humans today, that near-universal, deeply ingrained cross-species response that Zanette and Clinchey's research documented, is the fossil record of all those encounters. It is what millions of years of being hunted by the most effective predator in the history of the planet looks like when it's been written into the nervous system of every surviving lineage of prey animal on Earth. And here's the part worth sitting with. We did not become terrifying because we were strong. We became terrifying because we were smart, relentless, and creative in ways that no other predator had ever been. We hunted in groups that coordinated strategy. We made tools that extended our reach beyond what our bodies could do. We ran animals to death in the heat of the day. We passed knowledge between generations so that each new cohort of hunters was more effective than the last. No other predator in Earth's history learned. No other predator got better. Every other apex predator is constrained by its biology, by the speed of its body, the reach of its claws, the strength of its jaws. We were constrained by nothing except our own imagination. A 6-ton elephant still moves away from the scent of humans. A lion still retreats when it hears a human voice. A deer bolts from the snap of a twig in a forest where no human has hunted in decades. That response wasn't built by one bad encounter. It was built by hundreds of thousands of years of learning, passed through genetics, that the upright ape with the sticks is the most dangerous thing in the world. They weren't wrong. They still aren't.